Hey there, YouTube. We're coming to you from Fargo, North Dakota, where I'm at our company training center learning about Mercedes Tier 4 final inline six-cylinder diesel engines that we have in a lot of our equipment at work. So I thought I would just throw up a video for you, which unfortunately is going to bring everything pretty much current. Done some vacationing and had some family time, a lot of extra work recently, and then this training sort of stuff, so not much going on with the Galaxie, but next week I think we can get back to that. So this video covers reuse of our offset shafts, some basic bearing packing, and assembly of our steering components. And unfortunately no sightings of any Kiwis in this video, but to be fair, this was all recorded before I called him out in the last video, so we'll see if we can get that up to date also.
Here's a quick look at our upper control arms and some of the things that I ran into. I've got a kit from Cantor Auto Parts, and I'm no connoisseur of fine ball joints by any means. This was just kind of an all-inclusive kit, and I'll just show you what I have ran into. This is the ball joint, kind of a, I guess I would say, newer style ball joint. It doesn't have just a boot that slides over. The boot is actually kind of clipped on here with this little ring here, and there's a groove in the casting of the ball joint that holds that together. What I'm running into is the original ball joints just had a little boot that slid over, and they would slide right in here. Now, this boot is obviously way too big to go through there, and I can feed it through, but I just don't quite have enough room with this boot that goes all the way to the top of the joint. So I am grinding just a little bit out of this to make that fit. Here's what I end up with. That little blue ring is right inside the control arm now, but that will hold well. I don't have the bolts or the bump stop in here yet, and I've kind of scuffed up my nice rattle can paint job, so we'll get the bolts in and we'll probably just put just a top coat of paint over that too. Also on the upper control arm shaft, I was a knucklehead and forgot these bolts are knurled so that your alignment guy does not have to hold both this and the nut to tighten them up. I put my impact on one of these before I realized it and spun it, so I'm just going to put a tack on there to keep that tight. And then these, I still don't quite understand. The manual says 160 foot-pounds, but that's kind of a really goofy thread that goes into here. There's no way that's going to hold 160 foot-pounds. They are threaded to the shaft also, and something I saw online was just to tack this bushing to the control arm, and then this can still spin back and forth, has the travel that it needs to. So I'll probably just grind the paint off, tack each one of those, tack that bolt that I spun, and then get my bolts in here and give it another coat of paint. This is by no means a knock on Cantor Auto Parts. They were very good. I ordered this right during the height of Corona, and they were back ordered a couple parts, and they shipped me the ones that they had so that I could get going. we'll try to get some assembly updates here. I've really been struggling to get things accomplished between parts that are wrong, parts that are bad. I guess we'll take a look at where we're at, and then we'll do a little bit of assembly live here. I do have the control valve and cylinder put back together. These hoses didn't seem to fit very well, so I just have those loose. We'll see how that all fits, and we'll tighten them up once we've got it in the car. And then my return hose, I noticed a little dampness on it, and we have a hole there, so I did order another one of those. That's going to be a little bit before I have that, so that will be a bit of a hold up. I don't think I'm going to stick that in the car until we're good to go, until we're assembled. And then I was looking at our brakes and pulled my new calipers out. They're quite rusty, so we'll maybe take those to work and clean them up a little bit. We will do some assembly of some brakes here. I think that's all that we had to look at for now. We'll go ahead and assemble one of the rotors. First we'll clean this off. The other day I asked my wife if she knew what brake parts cleaner was for, and she thought it was for cleaning brake parts, and I told her that it's actually for cleaning anything, but we will use it to clean brake parts. I think that's maybe what it was designed for. We'll get this film off of here. Luckily they did have enough film on there. These have been sitting for about 1.5 years in the trunk of this car, and the rotors are still fairly clean, so I am happy about that. If any of my coworkers are watching this video, notice the brake cleaner from work. I have receipts, don't worry about it. Also, empty boxes of rags. No rags came home for this project. We do have some Harbor Freight special gloves. And by special, I mean that they're made out of the thinnest possible material that will actually form a glove for a few seconds, but might keep a few harmful chemicals off now that we've already sprayed brake cleaner on our hands. And we'll go ahead and pack a couple bearings. I guess the only reason I'm showing this is because I've watched videos on YouTube, because I like to watch YouTube videos of people that just kind of smear the grease around on the bearing and kind of make a ball of grease and call it good. This is how I like to pack a bearing. There are packers too, but we're not going to bother with that. If we keep just pulling just a little bit of grease off at a time, we have grease coming up the center. So we're getting grease inside those rollers, packing it in there. Certainly not my method, it's just what works. If you're repacking, you'll see the dirty grease come out of there, and you get that out of there, get it wiped off. And then we'll smear some around the outside. Put some down in the center of the rotor. Now, after I make fun of the Harbor Freight gloves, they work just fine. maybe get another washer to put underneath of there. This is all kind of just a put together setup I'm trying to do. So I don't know if maybe I could find a taller nut, but I'm not comfortable with these little locks not reaching up to the cotter keys, so we will rectify that, put our cap on next time.
Things are starting to get a little out of order here in terms of when they actually happened and what video segments they make it into and when they get posted, but here's our steering gear installation, and I promise the video of the steering gear rebuild and our power steering component rebuilds are still on the way. Here's the idler arm mount install.
Okay, we'll go ahead and install our control arms. These will go through the holes, and then I'm just going to shim it the same that it was beforehand. I guess that'll probably change because our ride height is going to be a little bit lower than stock, but I'll just put it back to the way it was so that I can at least drive it to town. I got 5 miles to drive on whatever I align it as. Okay, shim packs are in. Upper control arms are mounted, and you can see our extra hole there for our airline. Other side is done here too. We are going to have a little bit of a tight clearance there for the airline, but I think we'll still be able to get a grommet in there and hopefully if we remove the grommet, be able to get a long screwdriver down in there to disconnect our quick connect airline fitting if we need to. Couple of assembly tidbits here. I haven't found any videos on people that are actually reusing their offset shafts, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to use the bar that goes across and ties them together. So I was looking for the O-rings that go inside of here, and I have not been able to find those. If somebody knows where those could be found, I'd be happy to have a part number and share that with other people. It's going to be a little too late for me, but where I work for Caterpillar at a dealer, I used a feature that we have called a similar parts search, and I was able to measure the outside diameter of this shaft, and then I was not able to measure the inside diameter of this because it's inside there. So my first attempt, my ID of the O-ring was fine, but it was a little sloppy in there. That I can type in whatever characteristics I want and see what Cat has, and they would have had something that works better than this, but it's Saturday and I was looking for something that we had available. So I have this O-ring. It's not perfect, it's very tight going together, but I guess that's going to seal even better. That is, I guess if you're satisfied with a fit like that, that is a Cat 9M4849 O-ring that you can order or get from your local dealer. Cat is nice to put part number on every O-ring. That's the one that doesn't work, but they do put that on there. So I was able to use the similar parts search also for the washer that I wanted to shim this nut up a little ways, since it seems to go down so far. I put an inside diameter and a thickness in there, and then I was able to sort through and find one. This isn't exactly the same size as our tabbed washer there, but fits good on the shaft, and it's plenty narrow, so it's not going to hinder our cap at all, and it's going to get us in the vicinity of where our castle nut is going to work a lot better. I just like that a lot better. The tabs are sticking up there where they need to be. Okay, we have our lower control arm, our offset shaft all cleaned up. We have the big bushing that goes around that, new O-ring installed, the 3 washers that were on there before. So we'll go ahead and get this installed. I believe the spec for this nut is 160 to 240 foot-pounds, which is about that much. So I have that tight with the shims that were in there before, and then I just rotated the offset shaft around one turn so that it is pointing, so that the back half of the shaft is at about a 6 o'clock position. And then we have rotation, which once we get weight on this, will get locked in place. I don't have any nuts on either of these shafts yet, but that will happen once I have everything, once I have the control arm sitting where it should. Okay, we had to take a little pit stop to do some checking here. I have a pretty good sized gap in between the boot and the spindle here, so I did want to check that. I grabbed the caliper and everything checks out. The taper on the ball joint is fine. It's just the ball joint is a bit longer on this, so I guess we have them equal on both sides, and just like the boot design being different, I guess the shaft design, maybe the shaft is the same length and the boot is shorter on this one. I guess I'm not sure, but the taper is good and everything seems to fit. One issue we are going to have here, if I can show it, is our ram air for our disc brakes here hits pretty quickly. That's not going to give us a very good turning radius, so we'll have to finagle that in, finesse that in, I think is how they say it. We'll finesse that in so we get a little bit more, a little bit tighter turns. Anyway, we'll keep on here. A couple of things here on our suspension. This air intake for the brakes here, I did fold that back a little bit there so we get a lot more turning clearance. And then the other thing I'm looking at here is our sway bar link. I'm going to run it like this, the factory length. I was thinking about possibly cutting about half of the bushing out of there and then finding a bolt that's 3/4 of an inch shorter also, just because when we're full up on our suspension, if our airbags are completely deflated, that angle gets a little wonky in there. It's not hitting anything, but it's just gonna, I think it's gonna wear these bushings fairly quickly. So I think I'll run it like it is. I can always get a new sway bar in like if we have problems, but just something I noticed, and I guess if you have any feedback on that, excuse me, if that would cause geometry problems, I wouldn't think so, but if it did, go ahead and leave me a comment. Thanks. As long as we're laying under here, I think we'll go ahead and hang our steering assembly under here so that we have that in place while we're routing other stuff. So none of our new brake lines or anything interfere with what has to be under here. And this nut I don't have tight yet. I'll probably regret doing that. I do not have my second power steering line either, my pressure line. we do want to kind of install this in pretty much a neutral position. I need to get something to get hold of this rod, get it out a little further. These hoses, I don't know if they're in the right positions, and of course have to tighten that nut up, tighten all of these up when the tie rods are sort of neutral, and we'll get back at it.
Alright guys and gals, that finishes up this video. The tie rod ends, turns out, were not correct. I ordered those for the Galaxie with the rest of the kit, and they do not fit in my Torino spindles. I don't have a tie rod reamer, so I reordered Torino tie rods and got that rectified. So that should have you up to date. Go ahead and please take the time to subscribe and like the video, and let me know what I could do better, or anything else that we could cover, things I could talk about while we're shooting just wandering footage where I'm not talking. Maybe you'd rather that I don't talk. Tell me that too. Alrighty, thank you.